Hello.
It's
How was your day?
good. We just came home after a 1 hour biking outside.
Oh, yes.
Now, I've been home for I think 5 days, and
Mm,
I'm eating the walls. You know, I'm
I,
used
agree.
to the house as much because yeah, that's me. But it's awful when there's nothing else to do outside.
I just can't imagine. I mean, right now, this morning my gym closed down, so
Mm.
I was really upset because, I'm training like all the time. So I'm trying to figure out like what the heck am I gonna do to train? I'm
Do you have
stressing
equipment
out.
at home?
Say that again?
Do you have equipment or something at home that you can use?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
Yeah,
That,
my
that
car
I'm
go like up and down like 19 stores. And he's just using the stairs because
I know. That's perfect workout. I
he
wish I
played.
had 2 stories.
I'm like, yeah, you can go ahead and do it. I'm fine.
I love it. I love it.
Let's see.
Okay. So Nadia just gave a thumbs up before we talk about UX estimation, just gave a thumbs up on our issue for release orchestration, minimal to viable evaluation. I'll chat it here just so that like she didn't say anything and I was like, okay, does this mean that we need to do the UX scorecards? So
Yeah. Um, I think that was my assumption from the beginning that they're just gonna want us to then do it for complete. That's what they will want us to
okay.
do.
And
But
I think that's great. I would rather do it for complete because I think that's going to be more meaningful for us anyways. But
yeah,
I'll confirm with her.
yeah.
Okay.
If we can add something there, but one of the things that we can do is that not really rush with that because just for the sakes of this OKR, I know that we have to deliver the OKR, whatever. But I'd rather, work on the plan during the next milestone, the current milestone, than executing it just for the sakes of executing it because we know that things are going to change and improve
Totally.
by the next month. So we can definitely start, but yeah, just want to also feel how you would think
Yeah.
that is looking.
I talked to Kenny and the same kind of justification and data that I've shown in that 1908 issue. I think we're viable according to the old definitions. So really, I completely agree that we can check that OKR off, given that it was in flight from. If Christy has a big heartburn over this, we can figure it out. But I just wanted to show you what I'm seeing from a product side. We have some UX insights that we're able to tie into that plan. So hopefully we'll go from, the right
Because the old
direction.
definition still stands. And I think they just want to have another layer of validation to get
Right.
data from actual users. But we have that data. Anyways,
So
that's
perfect. Okay. Let's talk about this estimation. So thank you for adding some thoughts, the thoughts that we talked about here. Um, and t-shirt sizing doesn't really translate. I agree. I think that would be weird. I mean, like, what would be a medium versus a large for a design project? I feel like that'd be very strange for me to try to conceptualize as well. The biggest goal that I have here is that I really want us to find what's the result that we're trying to get out of design activities and make that a concrete relationship to an output. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't think time spent is a valuable metric, and I think that you've also said that in this comment here. So I don't think we should go to hours. I'm comfortable with the whole idea of using the Fibonacci series, but what my pain point here is understanding and reconciling story points to how engineering is weighting. And if something has a really high design proposal and it has a really low engineering effort, is there something wrong with our weights and estimations? Because when we look at total effort,
yes.
I just want to make sure that we're being mindful of that, right?
I think that's the current discussion we're having, because Nadia's initial idea was to set like hard values for all designers so that we could all measure the same. And our discussion is that we all have different understanding of our products, so different, you know, abilities, different expertise. So using like teacher size or Fibonacci the same for everyone is not going to work.
Right.
But also one of the things that I want to make very clear that from my point of view, my story points or my t-shirt size, my numbers, my weight has nothing to do with the engineering weight. Because for example, and that's, I left this example in one of the comments, is that if I'm assigned an issue that the scope it's not solved yet, and that I need to reach out to you, to engineers, to set up calls, to do prototyping, for us to do research, that can be, for example, a small engineering effort because they're going to break it down into multiple deliverables. But to me, it's a big UX effort, and I'll have to do, you know, not only a different timeline, but it's just a different effort. So we can definitely use the same numbers, but in my opinion, and also from my experience, the design size, it's not going to be the same engineering size.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be. In my mind, I don't think that that makes sense. So I agree with what you're saying on that.
Yeah. And then,
but my only thought was, is there something that we can make tangible on the front end and have that be our weight? So this is like, for example, if we say one mock, or we use components. So we could have like 20 components that need changes and the weight's 20. So then we would break it down to several issues. And then I think that the engineering team will be like, okay, so there's 5 components here. I get to edit all these components in one MR. And it becomes a very like comprehensive evaluation of total team effort for a feature or for an MVC. And I think that that could be a really great concrete way to evaluate UX effort versus engineering effort. But I do understand that changing components and designing components is not necessarily comprehensive when we're looking at the design time and effort, right? Because you're on calls, you're interviewing customers. It's like if I had to weight issues, I would come up with an abstract PM task. And I would then say like 1 PM task is equal to about 2 days. And that's how I would do it, so that people understand that like I'm showing the time dimension as our results to complete 1 PM task typically takes 2 days to get the result. So
but it makes sense to want to translate this into deliverables. By the way, can we record this just for the sake
of please. Yes, please.
To come up with a great idea? We can just share with others.
Yeah.
Am I the one?
I think you're you set this time up maybe. Or did I? Maybe I did. Oh, damn. I'm such an idiot sometimes. For some reason, this week has been very like my brain just is super scattered. Okay. I think we're already recording.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll make
Great. Okay, I did organize this. Perfect. Jesus, Hayana, what's going on with my brain? I'm sorry. I think I just need to take like Monday off or something, like recharge my cells. Ugh, I'm such an idiot. Okay, so.
I was going to say that I think it's very interesting having this idea or having this concept of breaking down into deliverables like mocks or components or whatever, because whatever that we, not just you and I, but together with Sean and Nathan, we identify as small like components. I'm just going to say components, right?
Yeah.
So for example, this thing needs to become a view component, but for that we need the design mocks. So if my design mocks and my acceptance criteria that we all agreed on, they define that there will be certain front-end effort, it means that all my work is going to be translated into a front-end issue. So it's nice to have this relationship between my task with the task. Yeah, I like that.
Love that.
And I think one of the ways to achieve that is actually my last point of the agenda, is to perhaps having a definition of done for UX, because that's when we can, look at the steps that we need to follow to complete, quote unquote, a cycle.
I love this idea. We've been kind of doing this organically
mhm,
with this. So like our release management needs UX review. If I was to throw like a definition on when we take one of these issues out of the UX review epic and we put it back in its natural epic and move it to the active board, the criteria, let me start writing in this issue so that we can just kind of document as we go. I would say it has a prototype or
mhm,
mock, is ready for engineering evaluation,
mhm,
has UX effort accounted for. And this could be long-term cycle. So like we know
mhm.
we know the unknowns, known unknowns. There you go. Accounted for in this.
To me, the key to achieve something like this is to really keep working with user stories, because from the moment that we identify that users are going to need to, you know, perform different actions or have different flows, it's when we can break this into different deliverables for developers. So create a release through the UI, but then you also have the tags page, right? That's a completely different user story. And the acceptance criteria is different. So for Nathan, that's a separate effort. So I see that as one check.
How about this? My first criteria that I've illustrated is user stories have been created, has a mock for each user story, ready for engineering evaluation per user story, has UX effort accounted for in the long-term cycle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if it's like something is researched, or if not, like has research insights linked or something like
I
that.
think what could be interesting is that we have like the entry criteria, which would be that problem has been validated. Okay. So like if we think about what's required to enter into design.
Mm-hmm. And we can
Problem.
also imagine, but maybe that's a separate step because it's on the engineering flow, is that it's validated by UX. So it's really the key way of the functionality, but that's the end part.
Yeah. So if I think about in our like definition of done, we probably have a couple of different steps. So criteria for UX definition of done, user stories have been created, prototypes or mocks for each user story, and then marked as ready for engineering evaluation per user story, which will be moved into workflow planning breakdown.
Yeah.
And needs weight.
Because I think from our most recent experiences, what's been taking the longest is the first step, is that defining the scope, is this story, is the criteria, but it's not even creating them because I can just look at the scope, you know, in the Asian discussions and come up with a proposal, but it's refining it. And that's the process that it's in a way time consuming because not only the remote aspect of our jobs, but because it's when we start filling the gaps. So I think it's that, but before we mark as ready is define the scope, you know, kind of, yeah. And I love what we've been doing recently, as in creating Epic and then just tracking everything there.
Oh, I know. I love that.
Because
that just keeps it centralized. I completely agree.
And then we know what's next. We know we can even revisit our decisions because most of the times we have discussions about something that we already talked about 6 months ago. And I'd rather, go through the effort of doing this process, at least for my own sanity, because I can also refer to these steps to other team members.
So let me highlight for engineering definition of done here. So if we go through the flow, entry criteria for something to enter design, problem's been validated, which assumes that the problem statement's clear. Mm-hmm. It has UX effort accounted for in long-term cycle, like we know the unknowns. And then in order for it to exit the UX cycle, user stories need to have been created, prototype or mock for each user story, and it's moved into workflow planning and needs weight. Mm-hmm. Entry criteria for ready for development, scope has been defined, user stories have been weighed and are less than 5 MRs. Mm-hmm. So once it's moved into development, in order for it to be done, engineering has a bunch of tasks mm-hmm. that we understand and we know, but I'm interested in hearing if there's like a closeout task where like UX must sign off on front end effort.
Exactly. MRs. Especially if it's front end. Now, I think more than usual, I'm also into some backend merge requests. So for example, API calls for releases. So Sean needs to know how that's going to translate to the UI. So I would say mandatory for front-end changes that, include UI, UX updates. So that's the QA, sometimes unit testing, design review. Let's call design UX review on changes that impact the user experience. And that's part of their workflow already. That's a criteria for them.
Yeah.
But then I think that's when we also spot opportunities to create new issues or make updates on the current scope. So de-scope things or change criteria and exactly what you put there. Update the source of truth, or create new issues for the changes that they have identified during the. I expect them to do that themselves. Sometimes they don't do. Sorry, guys.
I know. Yeah.
We forget. I know we forget about some things. But it would be nice to.
Okay.
Have a chat box.
Let me snag that link from here. Copy link URL.
I think this would be nice for us to make it very explicit what type of work design is doing, because it's so easy to get lost in the process.
Right.
But also to know how far we've come, with, for example, creating releases with UI or runbooks.
I know.
That's what we've seen.
Yeah. Okay. So let me copy paste this into our agenda too, and I'm going to probably post this in our channel.
Let's wait. Other teams are doing. Have you seen those issues by I think Create?
I have not.
Them to do the same, and they are using Fibonacci. I just sent you the link on the chat.
Okay, good. Let me check that out. I'm going to add. Let me remove the bullets here. Okay. In the chat.
Kind of the same, similar conversation. They want to use it for planning. And that's another topic, like when do we want to have these conversations? Because I think I can start doing individually async, but it would be nice to bring my questions to the team as well. So for example,
so maybe this is done with you and I when I create the milestone planning issue, and that way we can have like UX issues that you wait beforehand, and then we assign them to the engineering team. Does that, so that we have like their capacity reserved? I mean, it's an extra lift because you and I would then be co-creating the planning for the milestone, and I'm okay with that. That's not like, it's just an extra lift for you. It takes more time out of your day to then come into the product process and plan out what we're going to be delivering. I also want to get ahead of this a little bit more. Now that we've added all of the UX front end labels, maybe this is, like, although we have a good idea of like what's happening in our roadmap, I feel hesitant to get too far ahead because of how sometimes things shift out. We talk about that paradigm pretty often. I like this weight though, this weight definition. I think it's tangible. I think we can apply it to both the planning process, which usually occurs the week before, like right now, like planning 12.11 or 13. I don't know if we've made a decision on that yet. If we'll push out the major release to June. I don't know if we've made that decision yet. So we can test out using this for 12.11.13 and kind of go from there. We already have those issues defined. So for example, like the CI/CD dashboard effort, that's,
Yeah, that makes sense. I think at some point, because these are not like hard values, right? I'm seeing what they're doing here is like, oh, it's a 5, it's a complex change. But what if at the end, we don't decide to deliver a complex change? We decide to deliver a 2, right? So I think what's going to happen is that at some point, I'll just go into the issues with you or by myself and come up with an initial weight and then refine that together to understand from that, a size, what can we actually deliver and what do we actually want to focus on. So I think that the first step will help us identify opportunities. And also one of the things we need to do is to compare I don't know how to do that yet, but compare like the total weight that we gave to something with what actually got done.
So I've been doing this with our engineering to kind of reconcile like how well are we estimating things. And for the items that go through the tech evaluation process, we're within like, 90%, right? So like we probably have maybe one more MR that wasn't included in the weight additionally. But for issues that didn't go through the technical review, sometimes we have 5 times the amount of MRs that were originally assigned when they picked up the issue. Like the delete an environment via the UI. Oh my God, that one has 10 MRs on it, and it's like, what the fuck? We thought it was going to be 2.
It's one button, guys.
I know. It's hilarious. So like that's a really good example.
But I think that for UX, it's a bit more fluid, right? It's not. Okay, it can be merge requests, but then I think in a way that's how engineers understood and how complex the problem became, or for whatever reason, right? That's merge requests. But also, to me, if we don't have like a set date to end the design process, it's difficult to measure velocity, effort, capacity, and we don't have that. We have to the point where something got handed out to developers, ready for development, but it doesn't end there. So are we considering the end date, the release date, when something was actually shipped? And only a few of these criteria that you added here for the definition of done can be taken into consideration to measure the velocity. Because prototyping, for example, I can prototype in the beginning, the middle, and the end. I'll be constantly doing that.
So this is why I added the entry criteria, because for example, this might enter into ready for development, but then it gets passed back to design. So it can be very cyclical. And right here is where you would need to re-estimate the effort once it gets passed back to you. So that's why I took a step back and looked at like entry and exit criteria so that we could understand like how do we approach this as an infinity or like the double diamond instead of just a waterfall approach, because it's not waterfall approach. We should be iteratively designing and thinking about. And estimates are only a snapshot in time, and they're expected to change as we learn new information.
Mm-hmm.
So what we should be capturing are the transitions of when we put something into design and we said it was going to be, and this is where I get back to the concreteness of it. We said it was going to change 4 components. And in the end, you had to create 3 mocks across 12 components.
Mm-hmm.
So we compare when something left the design phase, what it was estimated at, and then when it left the development phase and what it was designed at.
That's awesome, because, for example, the same way we can I delivered so many mockups for deploy freeze, and then let's just do something on GitLab CI, right? So we measure 13 points for the initial design effort, but then during the refinement, the scope has been defined and the criteria for ready for development, we change that. So I think it's a good way for us to be able to measure that, and also will help us apply and identify where the gaps, that we can focus on when similar issues come up.
Okay.
Cool.
So as far as what we're going to do for the weighting, I'm happy to do Fibonacci, and then we can start thinking about if it starts to translate to components or mocks.
Mm-hmm.
And we can experiment with that. I want us to get to this point where we can translate the UX effort to the front end issues, because that will be a really nice, again, total team effort that we work toward.
That's awesome. And maybe we can create, I'm not sure how that works at GitLab. Let's create like an issue template just for ourselves, just to try it out. And if we do, that's a problem, because if you want to do this for GitLab, we need approval. And they're going to say, just update the existing template. So let me investigate this.
Okay. So I'll have...
Because I don't want to be like copy pasting all the time, this information. And although we'll iterate on it, maybe we can, in the next issue, just add a section at the bottom, like UX criteria, and then we start iterating on that. But I think it would be nice to have a template, so that the team also can be a bit more aware.
Yeah, I love that.
This is, I've got too many tabs open, right? No, not GitLab design. This is GitLab org, right? GitLab org here.
And I think what I'll do is add an issue to our release management project, so that we can talk about as a group this new criteria and potentially have it come back to our process. Does that sound okay? Because like I want our team to like commit to this shit.
Makes sense. And I think especially Nathan and the ones that are so much involved in the UX process, they're gonna definitely want to give an input, and they might be able to help us identify some of the steps. Because to me, it's difficult to put like a hard set of steps, because it just happens. I don't know, it's just so fluid, right? I don't follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For example, I avoid prototyping until the last minute, because I know that the scope is going to change.
Right.
Until the moment we decide that they're going to start coding, or that I can post a prototype, but they're also working on a tech evaluation, a research issue, and my prototypes are not valid anymore. So it's a gamble, let's say. But I think it's a good start.
Okay, perfect. And we'll do Jay Hampton. Okay, let's try to nail this down in like 12.10. We'll do team task here. Got it. Okay. So I assigned this issue to you. I assigned myself to this issue too. It's just the copy paste of our criteria, and then we can paste it back out to the team. Sound good?
Awesome.
I'll drop it in our agenda.
One, right? Not the existing. I got lost on all my tabs. I'm like looking for it. Discuss the ID for UX. Awesome. Yeah, I don't want to like over-engineer this process. It should just be something that we can check and then, you know.
Yeah, I also just want it to be efficient, right? Like I want our team to understand that the handoff right now is kind of sticky between y'all, like between UX, and it's not efficient and it needs to get better there.
Yeah, and also the review process. We have another issue for that because when something gets to from front end assigns it to me, but then they're actually building those small components, the parts, I'm not even able to review.
Yeah.
So
we need to create review apps. And it's interesting because when I know I have another meeting at 9 right now, but when Sid was reviewing the review app for the release post, any item that was in the release post that had a front end component, he's like, I want a screenshot. Mm-hmm. So like that's so hard for product managers because sometimes like the features are right up into the line. So awesome. Well, thank you, Hayana, for this conversation. This was really good. I appreciate your effort. You're awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
have a good weekend.
See you Friday. Bye.
Bye.